significantly weak. That's how Attorney at Law Dexter Todd describes the police's case against Vinod Gopal and Aaron Sanchara, two of three men charged with the murder of Isaiah Henry. This was after Magistrate PTU agreed with Todd that the state has produced no admissible evidence of murder against Gopal and Sanchara.
So, in a nutshell, the case that was presented by the state in relation to this murder was a very weak case. It was so weak that there was no need for me to do a no case submission. Just what I have represented at the starting of the case and throughout every witness. Now, I have done a lot of preliminary inquiries. And when the Director of Public Prosecutions look at the deposition, the Director of Public Prosecutions will recognize that more than 90% of the witnesses brought by the state, I declined cross-examination. Because there was no reason to test their evidence. Their evidence, of course, did not point to these two men committing the act. Now, that would have been very, very important. So the magistrate only had to look at the close of the prosecution's case on the sufficiency of the evidence. Now, I had no doubt that the magistrate was bound by law to discharge these two men, because there was not even a string. You know, sometimes a case is just hanging by a string. This case didn't even have a string to hang on. How can one have a case of this importance in this country, and you can't even, in your DNA analysis, you can't even say from all the samples, and the police collected a number of samples, you cannot even say from the samples that this blood stain picked up from X point was connected to a deceased, a particular deceased, or it was connected to a crime scene. The entire report came back inconclusive. No match.
Todd feels that the Director of Public Prosecution should withdraw the case against the men.
It was a mistake to do that, and I'm saying that that mistake is correctable and it can be corrected at this stage. To withdraw the charges against the two and to allow the police to do better investigation for the investigations and come again at some stage with whoever the right persons, as well as you have to consider that you have precious judicial time. You have matters where people need the attention of the courts and the magistrate, and those matters have to be put aside because of the fact that you are dealing with this particular matter, and this particular matter has no evidence.
Todd said the entire process was a waste of judicial time. Meanwhile, Nigel Hughes, who's representing the Henry family in the matter, said he was happy that the case was dismissed.
I'm happy that the case was dismissed because we said from the start that these two boys were not involved in the killing of Isaiah and Joel. We've always said that the real killers, there has been a concerted attempt not to arrest the people who were involved. And personally, I think this is such a condemnation of the police methods, relying on a confession statement which clearly could not stand the light of day. It vindicates our call from the start for forensic experts to come and assist the Guyana Police Force. I think, for me, there's a complete loss of confidence in the Major Crimes Unit. You have a magistrate, the preliminary inquiry. This hasn't even reached the jury, dismissing this case, which everybody said was not going to hold water. And therefore, it means that the Guyana Police Force has completely failed in the investigation of one of the most heinous murders, or some of the most heinous murders in the history of this country in the last 2 decades.
Meanwhile, the men will still remain in custody as the Joel Henry PI gets on the way on August 10th. The mutilated bodies of Isaiah 16 and Joel 18 were found on September 6, 2020 in Cotton Tree Back Dam in the west coast of Belize. A post-mortem examination found that the Henry boys died from hemorrhage and shock due to multiple incise wounds.